Okay, we've got a command of evidence quantitative problem, and we want to support the team's conclusion, support with the data in the graph. So let's take a quick peek at the graph. What's the story here? We've got estimated temperatures that artifacts were exposed to. We have 2 of them were high, 2 of them were low. Okay, that's a pretty basic graph for the SAT. Flint artifacts dating to 800,000 to 1 million years ago have been recovered from the Evron quarry in Israel. Likely created by the homonym Homo erectus, the artifacts have no visual features suggesting that they were exposed to fire. So, all right, that's kind of interesting. They were not exposed to fire, but they did see extreme temperatures, leading some scholars to conclude that these homonyms had not acquired control of fire. Okay, 100,000, well, 1 million years ago, they didn't have fire. All right, but such and such and colleagues recently used a new method to determine whether these artifacts have been exposed to temperatures above 400 degrees, the typical temperature campfires reach, and concluded the hominids who inhabited the site may have had control of fire. So that's our claim we need to support. They may have had control of fire, and fires are basically 400 and above. Okay? So we need evidence from the graph that shows 400 degrees or above. Well, we can see 2 of them are above that level. 2 of them aren't even close. So let's see what the answer choices are. Artifacts K5106 and K39 were exposed. No, they were not. That's false according to the graph. They were low, like 1 to 200. Artifacts L5239 and K318 were exposed to temperatures approximately 550 and 650 respectively. That's right. That's true to the graph. And that suggests that they've had fire too. So I'm going to hold on to that one right there. It's correct and it's relevant. All of the artifacts were exposed to temperatures above 100. That's true, but it's not relevant. That doesn't tell us anything about fire, which is 400 degrees and greater. Artifacts K39 was exposed to higher temperatures than was K106. Well, it's not a comparison. That's not our claim. The claim is whether they're greater than 400, and B is the answer that shows there were artifacts that were greater than 400, so they were probably exposed to some type of campfire. Okay, we've got a command of evidence, quantitative with a graph. We need to support the student's conclusion. Let's take a peek at the graph. What's going on? Monthly hours of sunshine from April to September in Alaska, so versus hours of sunshine. So we have a lot of sun in April, May, June, the spring when the days are longer, and not so much as we get into the fall as days get shorter. This makes sense, okay? Nothing surprising there. We've got 2 different cities, Anchorage versus Fairbanks. So it looks like there's shorter, less sunshine in Anchorage, but in the fall there's a little bit more sunshine, or it's about equal. So what's the background here? A student is researching monthly hours of sunshine in different cities in Alaska, okay, Anchorage and Fairbanks. When comparing trends in Anchorage to Fairbanks, the student concludes the 2 cities show a similar pattern in the monthly hours of sunshine from April to September. Yes, it is a similar pattern. It's going in the same direction. There are some differences in the summer or the spring, but it's in the same direction, very similar. So what would show that? The monthly hours of sunshine in both Anchorage and Fairbanks hold steady in June and July before beginning to decline in August. Yeah, that's kind of right. Well, they start to decline in June, I would say, but they're fairly steady up until then. So I'm going to put a question mark on that. I'm not going to eliminate it yet. The monthly hours of sunshine in both Anchorage and Fairbanks increase from April to June and then decrease from June to September. I think that's more accurate, right? They both increase to June and then they decrease after that. And that generally shows a similar pattern. It shows both up and down together. I think that's better than A. So I am going to eliminate A now, and I'm going to put a check on B. And let's just go through C and D. Possibly they're better, but I doubt it. B is pretty good. Anchorage and Fairbanks both have less than 200. No, the absolute level is not the idea. That doesn't show that they have a similar pattern. Anchorage and Fairbanks both have more than 300 hours of sunshine in April and less than, again, the absolute level is not enough to show a similar pattern. The best representation of a similar pattern is the fact that they move together from April to June, and they move in the same direction from June to September. I think that's better. So let's just check this again. The student concludes the two cities show a similar pattern in monthly hours. So 300 hours from April and less than 200 hours from, I mean, that is some similarity, but it's not as telling as the similarity as the fact that they move up together and they move down together. So I'm still going to say the correct answer is B. Okay, we have a command of evidence question. We want to weaken the student's claim with data from the graph. Okay, we've got spider population count and a spider count, basically, versus the days of experiment. So as the days continue, the spider population goes down, whether there were lizards or no lizards. So let's take a look. To investigate the effect of lizard predation on spider populations, a study in a biology class placed spiders in two enclosures, one with lizards, one without, and tracked the number of spiders in the enclosure for 30 days. The student concluded that the reduction in spider population count in the enclosure with lizards by day 30 was entirely attributable to the presence of lizards. So with lizards, which is the black bar, that count does go down, right? But the thing is, without lizards, it goes down as well, just not as quickly. So there's something else going on here. It's not just the lizards. The spider count would go down anyway, even without lizards. So I think that's what will sort of weaken the conclusion. Let's see the answers. The spider population count was the same. No, that tells us nothing about weakening the conclusion. The spider population count also substantially declined by day 30 in the closure without lizards. Yes, that shows, wait a second, there's something else causing the decline, something other than lizards going on. B will be the answer. Let's quick check C and D. The largest decline spider in the closure with lizards occurred. No, that doesn't tell us anything about what we need to know. That's irrelevant to the question. The spider population count on day 30 was lower in the enclosure with lizards than in the enclosure without lizards. Well, yeah, because we expect lizards were a factor, and that's all that says. So again, that doesn't answer the claim, which is that it was entirely lizards, and it doesn't seem it was. B is the answer. Okay, another command of evidence, quantitative. So we've got a graph, and we want to support the graph, support the hypothesis with data from the graph. Okay, so quick, what is the graph showing us? Can we figure it out? We've got the metal content of plants without some kind of exposure. And the metal content is our vertical, and we've got with and without this additive. Okay. And we've got a couple different metal contents too. So, all right. So what can I tell here? Without, we've got much higher metal content than we do with. And there's a difference without. The iron is a lot higher than the zinc, but with the zinc is actually higher than the iron. So the iron really gets hit hard when we do add this kanamycin, whatever it is. Okay. So let's read. Many plants lose their leaf color when exposed to kanamycin, an antibiotic produced by some soil microorganisms. Okay, so leaves both exposed to this antibiotic, they lose color. Spellman and colleagues hypothesized that plants' response to kanamycin exposure involves altering their uptake of metals such as iron and zinc. The researchers grew two groups of seedlings of the plant, half of which were exposed to kanamycin and half were a control group without kanamycin, and measured the plant's metal content 5 days after germination. Okay, so the hypothesis is that plants' response to kanamycin, whether they lose their leaf color or not, is a result of their uptake of metals. So how much metals are in there? So what does the evidence show? That with and without kanamycin, we've got very different metal content. Without, we have much higher. With, we have much lower. So the much lower metal content, maybe that causes the change in the leaf color. but it definitely meets our hypothesis. The researchers' hypothesis is that response to kanamycin involves altering uptake of metals. Well, there's definitely a difference in the metals with and without. So let's see. The control plants contained higher levels of zinc than iron, but plants exposed to kanamycin contained higher levels. Okay, that was true, but it really is irrelevant to our claim. Our claim or hypothesis is that there's a difference with and without kanamycin. Both groups of plants contain more than 200. No, that's what they both have. That's their same. We want to show that there is a difference of uptake in metals. Zinc levels were around 300 parts per million in the control plants, but nearly 400 parts per million in the plants exposed to kanamycin. Okay, that's essentially the control plants are without kanamycin, and the others are with kanamycin. So we're around 300 parts per million in the control plants. No, the control plants are without kanamycin. So the zinc was 400 there, and it was 300 when they're exposed with kanamycin. This is the opposite of the facts. This is not correct. Okay? Not correct or accurate to the graph. D, the plants exposed to kanamycin showed lower levels of iron zinc than the control plants did. That's true, and that's the relevant data or evidence to support the hypothesis.